Um, this, which you see, self-care, the new mantra for personal well-being, is a concept that I developed during the lockdown. Before the lockdown, I used to tell people about wellness, going to the gym, going to the spa, but a time reached when we all couldn't go. Remember? Do you remember the lockdown? Hello? Do you remember the lockdown? There was absolutely no spaces for us to go, meaning that the narrative about well-being was shifting to the self. So enjoy as I share. So today we'll just understand what mental health is. We'll look at mental health and the finance-related profession, and then I'll talk about the self-care concept. So before we talk about mental health, I love using a more relatable approach from first principles. A human being like me that you see is composed of a body and a mind. In theology, they say man is made up of body, soul, and spirit. But now we are saying man is made up of body and mind. The body is the me that you see, with my hands, with my legs, and the different parts of my body. But inside me, there's another human being, which is the mind. And the mind, we can say it's the spirit and the soul. And that's where your moral standards, your ethics, your principles take place. In terms of computer, you would say that the mind is the software and the body is the hardware. So the body and the mind are interlinked. What happens in the body will affect what happens in the mind. And likewise, what happens in the mind affects the body. So we can never talk about mental health without looking at this definition. The World Health Organization in 2011 defined mental health as a state of well-being where every individual, each one of us here, number one, you realize your potential. Number two, you're able to cope with the normal stresses of life. Number three, you can work productively and fruitfully. And number four, you have made a positive contribution to your community. 4 dimensions. Earlier on in 2018, when we started talking about mental health, people associated mental health with Butabika. They associated mental health with the mad people that you see on the streets throwing stones. But according to this definition, it is 4 elements. Number one, it is realizing your potential. That's number one. Number two, coping with normal stress. Number three, working productively and fruitfully. And number 4 is about making a contribution to the community. If there is anybody in this gathering who can say that you score 4 out of 4. Hello? Anybody scores 4 out of 4? You want to tell me that you are at self-mastery, that you are a master at managing stress, you are very productive in your work, and also you've made a contribution to your community? Please put up your hand. If you're here and you're scoring 4 out of 4. Anybody here? Anyone? The chief guest. Anyone here scoring 4 out of 4? Thank you very much. And what we see here is not any different from what I see every day, wherever I give such talks, including my own self. I am working towards scoring 4 out of 4, meaning that in case you're not scoring 4 out of 4, you're not yet there in terms of good mental health. Let's continue. We can also describe mental health as how you feel about yourself, how you realize your own abilities and skills, how you respond to the day-to-day demands of life, how you think, feel, and act in face of daily life problems, how you handle stress, how you relate with others, how you make choices that make you to enjoy life as a human being. That's what mental health is. Do we all have mental health? Do we all have mental health? Hello? Do we all have mental health? So far, are you seeing yourself somewhere? Good. So mental health also is a continuum ranging from normal mental health in the green zone up to the red zone. The red zone is the ill mental health. So in the green zone, you're functioning normally, you're doing well, but because life doesn't happen in a linear manner, you're bound to get challenges every now and then. You'll be affected and you will get common and reversible distress. But in case at that point you see a counselor, you talk to somebody, you can easily go back to the green zone. In case you don't get assistance in the yellow zone, you now continue in the orange zone. And in the orange zone, your mental health is now injured. And here you have severe and persistent functional impairment. And in case nothing is done, you now proceed to the red zone. Now, people that are in the red zone are the ones that have a clinical disorder. For instance, our patients in Butabika. What does that mean? It means that very few people end up in Butabika, but also many of us that are on this end are neither thriving or excelling because of not knowing how to handle life's challenges. So if I can ask you in this room, because adult mental health is very subjective, are you excelling? Are you thriving? Are you surviving? Are you struggling? Or you're in crisis? It is up to you. Where are you? Hello? Are you excelling? Surviving is also okay. And it's actually very good for you to admit that I'm now surviving. Anybody in crisis? Anybody struggling? And it is very normal for you. It is normal for you to feel like that. So why are we talking about mental health? Why are we focusing on mental health? Number one, there's no health without mental health. Number two, every one of us is susceptible. You can't say, I am the CFO. Me, I can never be mentally affected. You can't say, I am the human resource. You can't say, I'm just a student. I'm just a child. All of us, as long as you have a mind, we all have mental health and we are all susceptible. About 2 weeks ago, a lady called me. She had a 10-year-old child. She calls me and tells me, my child had abdominal pain, but the doctors say there's absolutely wrong with the child. They've told me that this 10-year-old is stressed. Psychologists tell me, can a 10-year-old be stressed? So I now began to explain to the mother. And actually she realized that the environment in the home had created the stress. So this is a very serious matter. The other thing is that in the current financial climate, a focus on mental health and mental health problems is important. Actually, we are even developing models of financial wellness incorporating behavior change. I'm told that nowadays just a talk on financial literacy is not sufficient. You need to address the behavior change for people to have tangible results. So we need to talk about mental health. The other thing is that in case you're an employer here, it makes business sense for you to talk about mental health in terms of productivity and performance of your employees. So what about us, the accountants? I did a bit of research to find out how you were doing in terms of employee burnout. And according According to that research by the University of Georgia, we are yet to do one in Uganda. Almost 99% of accountants suffer from burnout. Okay? Harboring feelings of exhaustion, inefficiency, alienation from job, according to that study. Again, another study showed again that 30% of accountants had mental health issues, in which 51% had depression and anxiety. So it is a serious matter for your profession. And what are some of the common mental health conditions we see? We see a lot of depression. We see a lot of anxiety. Depression. Let me talk a little bit about depression. Depression is different from sadness. This is having persistent feelings of a low mood, lack of interest in anything. Either you're sleeping too much or you're not sleeping at all. Changes in eating, changes in sleep, loss of interest, mood changes, and this should happen over a period of 4 weeks. In case you're feeling like that, then you need assistance. So depression is very common. Next. Anxiety, that feeling of overwhelming emotions. Stress, we have seen. And the thing about stress is that no part of your body is spared from the stress. As you can see in the picture, that man, every part of the body will experience stress from the head to the toe. Hair, mouth, brain, muscles, digestive system, reproductive system, everywhere. Then, in case you don't manage the stress very well, you end up with burnout. Burnout, that last matchstick that you can see, that is burnout. Those are some of the common conditions we see in the workplace. So I was invited here to talk about self-care, and I could not talk about self-care without talking about mental health. Self-care comes from us understanding that we have different levels of engagement. You as an individual. We have the intrapersonal, that red zone, which is you, the self. Then you have the interpersonal, where you have family and friends. Then you have the societal, and then the community. For you to be functional, if you can go back to that definition that the World Health Organization has given us, they said how you realize your potential. They start with you. How you manage stress, how you work productively and fruitfully, and then how you make a difference in the community. Now, all those things are encompassed in that. But the main issue here is the you. How you see the environment, how you relate with your peers, will depend on how you view yourself. So, out of that self, we extract out something we call self-care. Caring for that self. You know? That self. Do you value that self? Do you value yourself? How do you see yourself? What do you want to become? You as an individual. Because mental health starts with you. So self-care has been defined as a multidimensional, multifaceted process of purposeful engagement that promotes healthy functioning and enhances your well-being. It starts with you, okay? It is vital for building resilience and also breaking down the stressors. It is the ability for you to refuel and refill yourself. Some of us, we work, we read non-stop. No break, no refilling. You actually don't even know how to refill. You don't know how to refuel, and you're just moving like that in life. It is also engagement in behaviors that promote and maintain your physical and emotional well-being. If I'm to ask you, what kind of behaviors, what kind of engagements are you carrying out for you to refuel? That's what self-care is all about. Self-care involves self-reflection. Where we stand as psychologists, most cases when people come to us and they've broken down, we take them through a lot of self-reflection. If you've done a lot of therapy, you know that there's a lot of self-reflection. We keep asking you, how did you feel? Can you go back to that moment? How was it? Most of us are running non-stop in the world and not having any moment of self-reflection. And also after self-reflecting, you now engage in actions in terms of knowing oneself. You're like, okay, for me, I am here at Silver Springs, but according to me, I must have left this place by 7. According to me, others will say, no, for me, I can leave at 10. But it comes from a personal level of knowledge. Okay? It is also personalized. I can't have the same self-care as my brother here who is helping me because we are all different. We come from different cultures. We come from different, we have different capability sets. I mean, if I decide to imitate him, I will be cheating my own self. So we have different forms of self-care. We have the physical self-care. We have mental self-care, social self-care, emotional self-care, and spiritual self-care because man is a spirit. How does it work? How does self-care work? Number one, it starts with awareness. Awareness in mental health is very, very important. Awareness involves having knowledge about what it means to be mentally healthy. Most of us don't know. It refers to noticing and reflecting on one's internal and external experiences. Some of us go through internal experiences, but we never take note of them. It also means self-monitoring and awareness. You know, you monitor yourself, you see how you are moving. You're moving on in the world. So let me you can forget everything else I've said, but don't forget this. According to that gentleman, human beings, remember we talked about the mind? We have 3 levels of the mind. In case I asked you, how are you? Who are you? You tell me your thoughts, you tell me your perceptions. But that is up to a level of 2%. We are an iceberg as human beings. And the next level is the subconscious. You have some stored knowledge. If I asked you, which school did you go to, you would tell me those things. And that is at a level of 18%. But 80% of who we are is that iceberg down. If you remember the movie of Titanic, there was that little floating ice. But under it was a lot of ice. So we don't know ourselves up to a level of 80%. And therein we have childhood traumas. We have some urges there. We have some bad memories. We have fears. We have negative emotions embedded in us. Now that's where our biggest challenge is. And by awareness, we need to learn more about that unconscious that we don't know anything about, because that is our problem actually. When an environment, if you have insecurity down there in your unconscious, and now you begin to work, you're in the workplace, and insecurity features, it's going to trigger the insecurity inside. And you begin getting panic attacks, you begin getting anxiety because of things that you've not dealt with. So increase your level of self-awareness. Number 2, I know time is running out. I'm trying to. So how do we increase that? Self-monitoring, learning about mental wellness, mindfulness, and meditation. Increase. Yeah. So the other thing is finding the balance. The balance in life, like you can see those tones. It means distributing your attention to various aspects of life. If you're here and your mother, your father have time for your children, The children that we are seeing in Butabika there in the ADU, when you sit down with them, actually, it's not the addiction. Addiction is just compensatory behavior. Under it, there's a family system that is dysfunctional. There's an absentee parent somewhere. Okay? So if you're here, try to distribute your time. Don't neglect the most important facets so that you can have that personal and professional realms balancing. The other thing is flexibility. Some of us are very inflexible. We are at that breaking point. But the way life is moving, you need to be more flexible. And here, it refers to a number of dynamic processes, utilization of effective coping strategies. You know, you must have coping strategies that enable you to be flexible. So what self-care is not? Some people will tell you, self-care, now you're selfish, you're unkind, you're difficult, you're unfriendly. It is not what it is. It is about you. So what do you have to do? You have to come up with your own self-care plan. Each one of us, you should come up with your own self-care plan. And these are some of the things that are needed in physical health. Eat well, drink well, have adequate sleep, and exercise. You can pick one or two. Next. Spirituality is very important. Unless you connect to God, sometimes it can be hard for you to deal with certain matters. There are matters that are higher than us. So spirituality is important. Physical exercise over there. And there's no excuse. If you can't run, you can swim. If you can't swim, you can skip. If you can't skip, you can walk. There's a lot that can be done. Laughing. Humanity is about connection. Some of us are so gloomy. Please find time to smile. Meditation and nature. Uganda is a very beautiful country. Let us connect to the trees, to the mountains, to the surroundings around us. The other last point is building resilience. Times are hard, but you must have an anchor. Get that one thing that can be an anchor for you to navigate the hard times. Lastly, if you were to develop your own self-care plan, how would it look like? Mine looks like that. How